Right, there we go. We are live.
Excellent.
I think we'll give a few minutes just to see if people turn up, if anybody's watching. Usually, I think it's just my mum and my wife watches these things, but Laura's sat in the lounge, definitely not watching this.
I think Joe sat in the bedroom watching it with
All
with the
right, okay,
dog, trying to keep him
all
quiet.
right, cool. Well, we've got the live viewers now, so we'll just give it a few minutes and wait for that to tick up. How are you? You well?
Yeah, all right, thank you. Yeah, very very good, very good. Finally got out on the bike this morning as well, which is excellent. I've discovered the hard way that organising cycling events is not particularly good for your own cycling. It would
Yeah,
seem.
you basically you get all of the sleep deprivation, but none of the fun of actually riding.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. But anyway,
That's
all good.
that's what I've seen. Right, well we have four people live, so
Wow.
and this will be obviously this will be recorded. So if anybody's watching this on catch up, don't leave questions because we won't be there to answer them. But in the meantime, yeah, let's kick off. Kevin Francis, organiser of the Great British Divide and the Great British Escapades. Welcome to the Turn Cycling YouTube channel, and welcome to everybody who's watching. We are going to have a live chat for about 45 minutes to an hour, where you can feel free to post questions either to Kevin as the organizer of these races, events. We'll get into what we should call them later, or if you want to ask me any questions about this as a both participant and as a coach who gets people ready for these kinds of things. So yeah, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
An absolute pleasure. Like I say, if people want to just chip in questions, throw them into the comments and we'll get to them as we go. And I know we'll really get into the detail of the Great British Escapades North and South Downs, which kicks off next Thursday evening. But we'll get into that into a bit. To start with, tell me about, very briefly, about the Great British Divide and the Great British Escapades.
Yeah, so this started some years ago where had been cycling for quite a while. Stumbled across the first transcontinental race, watched that avidly and got completely addicted with dot watching and just watching these complete loons riding across entire continents and doing unbelievable things, and was hooked with that side of endurance cycling and then the bike packing element to it as well, and slowly but surely got more and more interested. Was an official dot watcher a couple of times for transcontinental, on a volunteering basis, which was great. And then never envisaged doing anything like it myself, but I had quite a big accident on a road bike, broke my arm, can't really hold drop bars particularly well now. Continued cycling but off-road, and then came across the French Divide, which is the race that I've done a couple of times now, and became completely hooked by doing stuff like that. Not massively brilliantly, I'll hasten to add, but thoroughly enjoy it and get out there and really get stuck in. And I run corporate events for a living, large stuff around the world, multi-million pound budget stuff. And it occurred to me on a flight to China about 2.5 years ago that actually, why don't I just combine something I'm very good at with running the events side of things with something I'm very passionate about, the endurance cycling, and develop something here in the UK, which is what I set about doing, really following the French Divide model as much as anything else to create that here in England, and through Wales and Scotland. Yeah, and that was how it was born, really, of putting that event together in the first instance, which took a more unusual route. So again, starting down in here in Canterbury, and then going across South Downs Way again, New Forest, then up Salisbury Way and into Wales ultimately, and then back across the country up north in Scotland, but then heading across through Glencoe and over onto the Isle of Skye for a little mini loop around the Isle of Skye and then a finish in Applecross. So avoiding the Land's End John O'Groats route that obviously exists with GP Duro anyway, which all sort of happened at about the same sort of time. And yeah, so that was put together. That was supposed to have happened this summer, which obviously didn't happen this summer. And it had always been my plan to then, off the back of the first iteration of the Divide this year, was to then create something smaller, some shorter routes that were probably designed more to appeal to newcomers and first timers of riding a very long way off road, mostly in this instance. But that was a more attainable and manageable thing to do for the first time round. And I sort of pulled on my experiences of my very first French Divide, which was pretty much an unmitigated disaster. There's, from start to finish, really, it all unraveled very quickly. And of just like, well, actually, if something like this had existed for me to just use as a training exercise, to learn about it a little bit more, dip your toe into the water, not such a big commitment and not so daunting, it would hopefully be a nice and appealing thing as an entry drug, so to speak, into the world that we're involved in here. And so that was in the back of my head. Hadn't planned on doing anything with it until next year, but as a freelance event director, I found myself in the middle of February with nothing to do, and actually nothing to do probably for 2 or 3 years by the looks of it, the way the event world looks right now, the corporate side of things. So it's just like, right, what am I going to do to keep myself out of mischief more than anything else? And I decided to advance the shorter rides, which then became the Escapades. So that's the backstory to it. And the North and South Downs version of that is the first one, which, as you say, starts next Thursday evening. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. We've got a date already in the can for April for that next year, and my hope is that I'll run that. Do a spring and an autumn version of the North and South Downs one each year, which hopefully will be a nice kick-off to people's year and a last hurrah at the other end of it as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the, unforeseen consequences of everything that's happened is you've got a lot of people desperate for a race. So I think rather than seeing this purely as an entry-level event, and I'm going to ask a few questions on that in a minute, there's so many of us out there who are just desperate to go and do some racing. So I think you're going to get you've got quite a strong field turning up.
We have way more than I'd ever anticipated, and it's tremendous, and it's I'm sure is symptomatic of this year, and everyone's race programs have ceased to exist probably. So that's great. It's great for the individuals able to take part in it. It's great for me as an organizer, particularly a fledgling organizer of this type of event. Yeah, the field is extraordinary, and there's still a proportion of first timers there, including some good friends of mine that are supporting it and having a go, that are very much sort of road cyclists that during the last couple of weeks I've been sort of palming off various bits of my kit to them that I've accumulated and lying around, so they're all tooled up with a hodgepodge of stuff.
I am looking forward to speaking to them when they finish, because I think they may have a few choice words for you.
I mean, kind
of press gang them from road ringing into doing this one. But I'm not going to give too much of the game away just yet. I'm going to be racing. I'm going to be there on the start line next Thursday. And given where I'm living right now, I've had the good fortune to be able to check out. Good fortune, is that the right word? I've been able to check out some of the route, so I have an idea of what's coming. But why don't you tell us it in your words? What can the riders expect from this course?
There's a real I think there's something for everyone there, and whilst we say it was about for beginners, it's a tough route. You've seen enough of it yourself, and we've spoken about it to know it's not without its challenges. And I think underestimate it, and you may be caught out by it. I think from the beginner's standpoint, where it's great, and this concept that I want to develop and turn into some other locations around the country as we go over the next couple of years. But the concept that I like to think is great from the beginner aspect is you start and finish in essentially the same place. You're not traversing a country, and then you've got that added logistical piece of, well, I've started here, and I'm going to end up over there, and then I need to get a bike box and get it all packed up and fly home, or whatever. So it removes that piece from it, and ideally not that far away from stuff. Albeit, again, with this route, you could argue that there's some isolation attached to it as well, and you have to plan out resupply and whatnot. But you would think it's a given that you're going to get some fairly fit, strong riders that have an idea of what they're letting themselves in for with taking it on. But the route itself, is challenging. You've got 477 kilometers, and depending on which bit of software you put it in, I've plotted it using Ordnance Survey, and it gives it just a few meters shy of 8,000 meters. By the time you drop it into Ride with GPS, it shaves some off. So who knows there, because it's all coming from the same data. But it's a lot of climbing, and if you look at the course profile, it just looks like a bandsaw. There is a relentlessness to this route that just keeps coming. I think you go through some amazing scenery, some really beautiful parts of the southeast. I think that some of the best, if not the best, off-road cycling you could have stitched together in one route in terms of what I've created there. So some great views, some things that you just wouldn't see, and from very close to like the M25, you flirt with the M20, M26, M25 for quite some way, and most certainly anyone from the UK that's down in the southeast a lot of the time is very familiar with the M25 and probably been parked on it, and yet you can be but a kilometre or two away from it, and you're blissfully unaware of that massive motorway right there. So I think there's a really interesting insight to be had from that aspect as well. But there is a relentlessness to this route. It never really stops giving you a little prod in the ribs, really. And hopefully that will.
I think that's one way of describing it. A gentle little prod in the ribs. I
didn't say gentle.
No, it was definitely anything but gentle. I set off yesterday thinking, I'll just go on a little jaunt, 180k, check out some of the northern stretch, because I did about 30k of the South Downs bit earlier last week, and I was like, oh, that was a bit tough, but at least that's the tougher part. I'm going to go and check out the easier part, yesterday, and I was wrong. The North Down section is pretty interesting, I'll say.
Yeah, I think arguably that bit, the northern bit of the North Downs, and the piece that goes through the Surrey Hills, which is not called the Surrey Hills for no reason. I actually think that's possibly the toughest bit. I mean, the South Downs is a lot of up and down, but it rolls, and it's really, really beautiful, and you can just get through that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the North Downs was technically more challenging terrain. There's some very tight, twisty single track sections. There's one particular bit coming down before one of the big climbs that had me bouncing off the walls a little bit. And it's certainly, for me, it really reminded me of old school mountain biking, kind of the mountain biking that I grew up with 30 years ago. When you just get an Ordnance Survey map and you try and link all the bridleways together, and you'd go out on fully rigid bikes with 2-inch tires and just try and ride them. And it was really, for me, it took me back to kind of my formative years riding bikes. And so for that, it was just
that's
amazing.
Good. That's great to hear.
And in a way, that's good news for me, because it gives us old timers a bit of a mental advantage over the young whippersnappers, because they won't know what's hit them when they try and ride across this without kind of 6 inches of suspended travel. And what have you with a big mountain bike. So I'm
Yeah,
banking
it's
on
true.
that being my advantage over the younger ones. But yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was just it was insane. There was some really steep climbs. There were a couple of moments I was pushing my bike because it was steep yesterday.
Yeah.
There's certainly some sandy bits that were
Uh-huh.
almost like riding through the desert out in Dubai. As I say, some fast flowing single track. So I think it's going to be a very tough undertaking, and I think it might. I can't get a sense of how long this is going to take yet. I have some
No.
thoughts, but so a question for you is how fast do you think it can be done?
Well, it's an interesting one, and you and I have obviously been talking about that a little bit the last couple of days, and it's a job. It's a job to really tell. I know there's a couple of riders that are talking about trying to do it in one hit, not carrying a sleep system with them, which fair play. I I'm not convinced it's the right approach to it, and dare I say it, I think it misses the point a little bit in some respects. Of just the magnificence of the scenery and what you're passing through, to actually do a lot of it in the dark is almost a bit of a shame. I get it, and we don't. And something you touched on a short while ago. We don't call these events a race as such, and it's more of an adventure, a brevet, a reliability test. Call it what you will on that side of things, whilst at the same time accepting that there's going to be some people that are going to want to go as fast as they can, and someone wants to finish first, or several people want to finish first, and I get and accept that. And I think there's within the field that we've ended up with, I think there's going to be quite a few people that are probably of that sort of mindset, that are just like
Don't know who would possibly think that.
2020 coiled springs. I think that we're just going to be pinging off down the North Downs way out of Canterbury next Thursday evening. So how long is it going to take? Well, let's put it this way. I'm out on the route during Thursday evening and Friday. I'm going to be back in Canterbury on Friday evening, late. I wouldn't be surprised to see some people arrive overnight between Friday and Saturday. There's a sub 30-hour time in there, I reckon.
Yeah, that would be punchy.
It would be very punchy. I mean, there's one chap's done a final test for me the last couple of days, and his moving time was 30 hours 18 minutes, with an elapsed of 39, with one sleep in that. So arguably, if someone is going to do it without sleeping, and is well organised and doesn't faff and has a bit of luck on the mechanical front, I think someone could do it sub 30. It will be an amazing effort if they do. But I just genuinely don't know. no one knows.
I mean, like I say, I have thoughts around how long it could take, how long it should take, and I'm looking at the data from the last couple of rides, and you're just like, I don't know. I mean, it could, it could go either way. I want to talk to you about the, you say kind of riding the daylight, experiencing the scenery. I want to come back to that one. But we've got a question in from Joanne Holton, who says, what would be your top tip for someone doing this kind of event for the first time? So, let me answer. I've got two thoughts on that, kind of in my capacity as a coach of these things. I think my first really strong bit of advice would be, do not go off too hard. Okay, this is not a one-day sportive. I have seen many people ride these like they're a one-day sportive, and after 10 hours they're way ahead, and then they just stop and they can't carry on. Okay, I always say, ride today, remembering that you've got to ride tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And that will always keep you from riding too hard. You won't win it in the first kind of 6 hours, but you can do enough damage to lose it in the first 6 hours. So, and that doesn't matter whether you're riding at the front of the field or the back of or the other end of the field, as we like to call it. It doesn't matter. Take it nice and steady. Ride like you've got to ride tomorrow, and ride tomorrow like you've got to ride the day after, and that should get you through at a sensible pace. More time on the bike is always better than riding faster. The second bit of advice I would say is keep eating. Always be eating. If you're not eating, you should be about to eat. And if you've just eaten, you should be thinking about your next feed. You cannot eat enough for these things. I think there was an interview with James Hayden before the TCR 2 years ago, and he basically said ultra racing is like an eating competition on 2 wheels.
Yeah.
So yeah, always be eating. ABE. But Kevin, you say you've done the French Divide a couple of times.
Yeah.
What was and you said the first time you did it, it was an unmitigated disaster. What was your biggest single learning point from French Divide that would help somebody taking this on?
I think there were lots of individual learning points, but actually I think the single biggest one, on top of what you've said, which is absolutely right, is actually enjoy it. Get out there, ride, and enjoy what you're doing. This year more than ever, you've got the opportunity to go out and ride your bike for 3 days solid. You've got nothing else to do for that time. It's been a rubbish year all round. Go out, ride your bike, have a nice time. And on this one specifically, and for a lot of newcomers, because I did my one, it was a disaster. I beat myself up pretty constantly for the first 6-7 months afterwards. Got my head back into it and went and did it the second time. And had I not got hit by a car, I would have finished it last year. I was just before checkpoint 3, got knocked off, and that's kind of brought it all to a bit of a halt. But even though I didn't finish last year, the difference of I was in a very different place and mindset with it, of terms of I'd improved my ability for sure, but I'd also improved the way in which I approached it, and I rode my ride and just kept chipping away at it, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And whilst finishing it would have been incredibly satisfying, it wouldn't have actually made the enjoyment of the experience any better. So yeah, I think just go out and have a good time.
That's a great bit of advice. My issues on last year's TCR are well documented. One of the things that struck me about Fiona's winning ride was she always seemed to be enjoying it.
Yeah.
And whenever you see her ride, she always seems to be enjoying it. And that's a great. So much of this is mindset. If you're enjoying it, if you're enjoying why you're there, if you can enjoy the inevitable pain and suffering, because riding your bike for however many hours is a miserable undertaking sometimes. But if you can enjoy that misery, then you will do a lot better.
Yeah, and I think that's why as well this concept from a newcomer aspect especially, but for everybody, I think regardless of experience, it's just 3 days. It's not like you're into a 15-day maximum completion on a TCR or French Divide or whatever. It's all relative in some respects, but it's over and done with pretty quickly, no matter how much you may be hurting as you ride your way around the route. And that relates to everybody, from one end of the field to the other. It's a very short window of time that you've got to do it for, and put up with any of the unpleasant aspects that come along with this sort of riding. And in the meantime, there's hopefully enough else going on that is good fun anyway.
Yeah, right. Well, there we go. Now, you've picked a very interesting start time. Talk to us about the time we're going to be starting and why.
So 5 p.m. start, roll out of Canterbury, and there was a mixed bag of this. Of reasons why. First and foremost, I wanted to try and keep this concept or format to being a long weekend. So that just meant that it could be contained within a Thursday to a Sunday this way, and allow anyone that's traveling, any not there's people coming too far, but it means that Thursday can be spent traveling and not having to get up at the crack of dawn to do it, or meaning that if we could, it would have been very easy to have a start very early on Thursday morning, but then that means people have got to maybe take Wednesday off work as well, or whatever. So it felt that was a good way of doing it. It also means that, the southeast is obviously quite busy. There's inevitably some roads that you have to go on, and those busier of the roads that you do hit between here and getting round into Surrey in particular, means that the time of day we're doing it will be at quieter times. So that was a consideration as well, of on the times it has to hit a bit of road, let's make sure it's trying to hit a bit of road at quite a quiet time during that first piece of the the route. And the other bit, of course, was then it just throws that gauntlet down straight away of
who's going to ride through the night.
Who's going to ride through the night? And if you are wanting to be more competitive with it, then you know what you've got to do. And that again is not necessarily for everyone. Not everyone is set up for it. And I didn't. Another part of the concept is that you don't want people to have to buy a new bike, buy a load of new kit. This is something that hopefully can be done on the bike that you already have in your shed or garage, one or t'other, with maybe some different tires or something on it. And the most minimal of kit that maybe you can borrow a bivvy bag from someone and some bags from someone. This is for the newcomer. So it just keeps that whole price point piece down as well for it. And then, not everyone's going to be running a dynamo system and an amazing lighting system. As it happens with the field we've got, probably most people are. But again, it's what we thought this would be and what we've got are two quite different animals in terms of the people doing it. So, but that was the fundamental concept behind it and thinking with it. And riding through the night there's a challenge straight off. And
I think one of the first things I would kind of comment on that, having ridden, I guess, some of the course where people are going to end up on kind of about the time to stop on the first night, if people are going to stop, is there are plenty of places to go and hide yourself and have a stealth bivvy. There's no, even though, as you say, you're very close to London, the M25, it felt like you were in a very remote part of the world, and really easy to just duck off the main route, get your bivvy bag out, or your foil blanket, or whatever passes for a sleep system. That's a very elaborate way of describing what I'll be taking with me. So that's easy enough to do. But I think the second thing, and this is kind of back to what you were saying about missing the point. Now, do you know what? I'm really excited about riding through the night. Riding through the night is one of the best experiences about ultra racing. You can only do it once or twice in a race. You can't do it unless your name's Sofiane. You can't do it for many, many days in a row. And I'm just I'm really looking forward to riding this thing at night, and I think a lot of it will come down to how well people do. Will come down to how well you can ride off-road fast in the dark.
Indeed.
The lights. I remember I did Mountain Mayhem. This is going back many years. 6 years ago, I did Mountain Mayhem, and it was absolutely frightening. Like riding through the wooded single track section at 2:00 in the morning under headlights was pretty scary. So I'm really looking forward to taking that on. My light system has been set up especially for that. So we'll see how it goes.
I've ridden quite a lot of it in the dark actually, and it's fine. There's bits where you do need to take it, fairly carefully. I think, definitely fairly carefully. And I think the other thing is, if anyone that does go and ride it through the night, hats off to them, genuinely. But for those people, they should go and ride it again in the daylight at some point, or a bit of it, especially the South Downs Way. My first ride through the South Downs Way was almost all in the dark. And then, you know, I've ridden it a couple of times since in the daylight, and it's just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So yeah, I would, if you want to go hammer and tongs and ride it through the night this time, fill your boots, but go and enjoy it again.
I'm hoping not to have to do the South Downs at night, but the North Downs section, do you know what? I think that might be easier at night, because doing it yesterday on a Saturday, there were just so many people, and I'm not anticipating there being that many people at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So yeah, and they will
Hopefully
see my
not.
headlights coming from a long way off. Headlights. I'm going to be running twin front lights with backup battery cells, so I'm going to have like 33,600 lumens on the front of the bike, which hopefully should do the
Wowzers.
trick. Yeah, we'll see. I've
Definitely.
not tested it yet. I need to try that out. Right, questions coming from Will Gowers. He says, Neil and Kevin, hypothetically, you're having a bit of a bad day on the route. Hypothetically, you always have bad days. There's no hypothetical about it. What do you buy from the shop as a pick-me-up? What was your go-to, Kevin, if you're having a terrible day?
Well, in France, it was inevitably a load of pastries of some description.
Oh, yeah.
Pastries, definitely. Haribo cola bottles, always. That's
Really?
my little hit. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing like, especially if you've set off early at like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and you hit a town at like 6 or 7 and you find the bakery that's open.
Oh,
and
it's
you
just
get
best.
fresh bread, fresh pastries, and fresh savoury ones especially. That's like an amazing thing. It happened to me in Serbia last year. Like I'd been up riding since like 3:30 a.m. and I just got into this town at 7, and there was a shop open, a bakery. In fact, actually, no, the best time this happened was in Rwanda this year, riding through the night, and we've been told don't sleep rough at the side of the road, because not because any trouble would happen, but you just get 20 people poking you, going, why is there somebody asleep at the side of the road? So I'm like falling asleep at the wheel because, like, you know, I've been told don't sleep at the side of the road. And this bakery appeared out of nowhere, and it's like heaven. Bakery in a chair, and I said I'm going to have 10 of those pastries and sleep on your chair for 20 minutes. And that was all I needed. But, you know, so for me to answer Will's question, 24-hour McDonald's.
Dirty.
Yes. And do you know what I discovered last year is that certainly on the McDonald's in France, which is where I really needed them towards the end of TCR, is they put calorie counts on as well. And there's something reassuring about sitting down. You can be in and out in 10 minutes. Like, you park your bike, you go in, you order online, it all comes out, and then you kind of go through and go. And I would go for like quarter pounder with cheese, cheeseburger, large fries, chicken nuggets, large Coke, and a coffee. And then it would tell you that you've just consumed 2,500 calories of food. And there's something really reassuring about taking in that amount of calories in 10 minutes. So yeah, for me, 24-hour McDonald's.
Super.
I haven't found any on the course route yet. I've done an in-depth analysis of every single 24-hour garage around the course. But I haven't found any McDonald's yet.
Yeah. I went through a drive-through McDonald's in Verdun in France last year. Actually, it was closed, but the drive-through was open, and they let me cycle through it.
Did they?
They don't do that here, not in the UK.
Yeah, I know of people being told you can't ride through it.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to get rid of me, to be honest, and just it was the quickest thing to do was give me food.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and when we're done here, I'm gonna go fire up Google Maps and search for all the McDonald's in the area, which is Will. That's the best way of doing it. Literally, Google Maps is your friend. Type in McDonald's and see where they all are, and find the one that's closest to the route, and then you are golden.
Will be cringing. He's a PhD researcher in sports science at the University of Kent, and he'll be like creaking at that.
Oh yeah. None of this like. I have this chat with people. I think you have to. Your race day nutrition can't be a surprise to you. It's got to be stuff you're familiar with and stuff you've used in training, which if you're training for a sportive or a shorter road race or whatever, yes, brilliant. Work with carbohydrate mix in your bottles and, you know, carefully formulated sports science gels and what have you. But if you're ultra racing, you're never going to find that by the side of the road. So you just have to go with what you find in a garage.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a pre-written list of things that I can just give to the people in the petrol stations and say, can you get me that, please? That should work. Yeah, well, there we go, Will. Hopefully that answered your question. And so moving on beyond, you know, hopefully this is going to be a roaring success. I truly hope it will. I have to say, I'm really looking forward to it. I think the course is spectacular. It's certainly hard. I think it's hard to do it in 3 days, never mind 30 hours. I think anybody getting to the finish line by Sunday evening should be justifiably proud of what they've done. Because
I agree. You know, that's
so, you know, 160 kilometers a day with probably, you know, 2,500 meters of climbing. That's a really hard day out on the bike, and to do 3 of them back to back will be no mean feat. So yeah, but yeah, moving forward, what is you know, what's next? When's the next one going to be? You've said spring next year, and and then tell us more about the plans for the Great British Divide.
Yeah, so next Escapade will be next April, mid-April after Easter. We'll confirm the date immediately after next weekend, actually, and then we'll look to do it again in September of next year. If I can, I will put another one in, perhaps for the autumn, somewhere else next year. I've got this tentative plan that over the next couple of years I will perhaps have 3, maybe 4 locations for the Escapades around the UK that will use some of the divide route, but we'll create a loop off of that of a similar distance in different places up the country. So the Escapade that you're doing next week does actually share some of the Great British Divide route. Some of it in the same direction, some of it in the reverse direction. But yeah, so that's the way that will develop. So certainly spring and autumn for these shorter ones, I think, work really well as an overall concept, as a training exercise and getting yourself in a good place and seeing where you're at really in the spring. And then yeah, hopefully, you know, this year's hard to gauge, but hopefully that sort of final hurrah of the year when the weather is hopefully decent still, everything's been and gone. In July and August, the main races and whatnot that take place, and you're still wanting to scratch an itch of riding a little bit more while the weather's okay. So hopefully that format will work nicely. Great British Divide is obviously a very different animal. That's that classic 2-week or 15-day completion event. That's about 2,400 kilometers. I'm playing with the route in terms of the elevation, because that was just looking a little bit too much in terms of what it was. But that should end up somewhere about 35,000 meters of climbing. So
okay,
pretty lumpy nonetheless. And you know, a lot of the route for that, well, in actual fact, the whole route's plotted. Over half of it is actually test ridden and, you know, committed. Obviously my test ride, well, not obviously, but in March and April, I'd earmarked a load of time of this year to go out and do the whole test ride and refine that, which with lockdown happening and you know, trying to be sensible with it and not hauling myself through lots of little communities that the route goes through. I just killed that and put it off till later. So I'm hoping after the Escapade is done that I will go and do a section from the section that takes from North Wales up to Kielder, something like that is my plan for this year. And then I will go and do Scotland in the in the springtime of next year, the early spring, as the weather just starts to perk up, just to do that. So, you know, I've researched the routes really thoroughly, plotted, replotted, and then I'm testing them all physically, going out and riding them. Even the prescribed bits, that, you know, routes like South Downs Way, for example, it's there, it's on a map, you know it's there, and you know you can get through. I'm still riding all of it. I just want to get that whole experience. Helps me with gauging timings of how people can, you know, we'll do it, and when we open and close checkpoints as well that way. And yeah, as you move further up the country, then there are some slightly more challenging bits in terms of, you know, is access actually working there or not. So there's only one way of doing that, and that's by physically going and riding it. And then, you know, I've been very lucky with a group of friends and people that I've met from being part of this sport that I can trust and rely upon to take sections of my route and go and ride it and give some honest feedback and help me tinker with that as well. So we'll continue with that throughout the process, but it's going to be a massive one, that one. And as I said, it just takes that slightly less obvious route with starting down here in the southeast and, you know, cross in, you know, ultimately into Wales, but then back across, picking up the Pennine Way and going up into the Dales and on up into Scotland, but then coming right across Scotland again from Edinburgh to Glasgow before then hitting Glencoe and up onto Isle of Skye. A couple of little ferry crossings thrown into the mix, from Mallaig onto Skye, and then the little car ferry from Skye back into Glenelg, which is this funny little turntable car ferry that will take 4 cars and only operates at certain times of the day and what have you. And then going over the Bealach na Bar, which, for anyone that doesn't know, is the road with the highest amount of elevation from sea level in the UK. So and then dropping into Applecross, the village the other side. So another epic route. So
yeah, I mean that just sounds stunning. And if your course design on the event next week is anything to go by, it promises to be, as you say, a very epic undertaking. But you know, hopefully people will come out next weekend and think, yeah, I'm enjoyed that, and I'm ready for the challenge that gives us.
I hope so. I mean, I've set a provisional limit of 75 riders on that one, and we're at about 40 already for it. So
yeah,
you know, it's still really early. You know, these things don't normally, you know, anything for July and August happening. Registration would not typically be opening until November time, maybe. So we're ahead of the curve with that one. So yeah, very happy with that. And as you say, hopefully people either participating in the Escapade next week or watching on and just seeing, you know, how we run an event and what have you will then jump on board then.
And where will people be able to follow next weekend? So where can we dot watch? I will be a dot. Where can people dot watch, and what's the best way of following any of the kind of media and social media posts that you're going to be doing? Yeah,
so our Facebook and Instagram channels will be where the vast majority is posted during the event. I need to embed the tracking details into the website, so which is greatbritishescapades.com. I need to do that in the next couple of days, so it's there. The links to that will also be posted on social media, and I'll pin those to the top of the pages. So we're using Map My Tracks for the tracking, which was another important thing to try and offer some tracking on this, but to keep the price point of the entry fee sensible without involving renting spot trackers and paying the fees to one of the companies that offer that much more comprehensive tracking system. You know, would have easily probably stuck another 30-40 quid on top of the entry fee, if not a little bit more, which I was reluctant to do, and just keep it quite keen on that front. And Map My Tracks, they're based in Canterbury actually, the Innovation Centre on the university campus, and I've tested it quite a lot, and it's a great piece of software. And it basically it turns your smartphone into a spot tracker with the endurance app they have. It sends a signal every couple of minutes. Doesn't put a drain on the battery. I've tested that over the whole route, and doesn't hurt that. And for most of us doing these events, your phone's either off or in airplane mode, so it's quite an unusual thing to have to. You've got to have your phone on for this one to work, but it provides that tracking. And whilst it's not going to have the detail of map progress or track leaders that people are perhaps familiar with, it will be giving all the information that you really need, and you'll be seeing where everyone is on the map, and then you can click on the individual and get a little bit more data out of it that way. So yeah, map my tracks. It's listed on their website, but yeah, go to either our website or our social media pages, and you'll be able to see exactly where to go for that, and I'll post the links up there.
Fantastic. And as always, I will be doing video coverage around the course, which will be I'm going to be putting that live here on the YouTube channel. Well, not live, it's going to be like a delayed posting, so I'll shoot the clips as I'm going around and then post them to the YouTube channel. So yeah, if you want to follow the event from the rider's eye, if you like, then do subscribe to the channel so that you get those updates every time I post, and you'll be able to go along, when you wake up in the morning, and check on all the updates that I have posted during the night. I'll also try and grab a few people to chat to during registration at the start. I think the finish is going to be socially distanced and probably very different to usual finishes, but we'll see what happens there. But yeah, do follow, do subscribe, and I will, like I say, I'll give you the inside track on the rider's eye.
Good stuff. And yeah, the start is also very socially distanced. So anyone watching that might want to come and see the start, you need to come and position yourself somewhere on the North Downs Way rather than at the start. We won't be letting anyone in other than a rider. There is I have risk assessments coming out of my ears for everything COVID wise, let alone the risk assessment you do for an event. And I think crikey, as an event director, I would have done probably 15, 20 overseas jobs by this point in the year, and just about to head out to America to do my largest job of the year, which that I don't see that happening inside the next 2 to 3 years or so. So to be running anything event wise as an event professional, I feel incredibly grateful and lucky to be able to do it. And I'm hoping that every participant will be sharing that of, gosh, it's actually something that we can do, and let's do it. We've got a pretty robust plan in place to manage everything COVID wise. And yeah, I think whilst the experiences will not be necessarily what any of us would really want and typically do in previous times, and hopefully in the future, it will work, and it will keep our participants, my small crew, and our partners, whether it's at the start venue, the checkpoint or the finish, all safe as well. And as long as everyone plays ball with that, it'd be great. And I really want us to be exemplars of doing this well. At a point when no events really are happening, that we've gone way beyond what we are required to do. Including doing symptom questionnaires 24 hours in advance, and then again on arrival as part of registration, just making everyone really think and commit to what they're doing properly, and all of the detail that's gone into it is, hopefully, because I hate this new normal expression that everyone's using. It really grates with me, but it kind of is what it is, and whilst I suspect, unfortunately, we'll be in for a bit of a rocky autumn and winter in some respects, I do feel genuinely privileged that we're doing this. And if we can find ways collectively as a not just me but the industry as a whole to do stuff and allow it to happen safely, then that's what we've got to do. And if I can try and lead the way of combining a very high-end corporate event sector to a cycling type activity of this, then if those two worlds can collide perfectly, then I think we're on for a good format that others can hopefully follow as well, so we can all get back to some form of normality sooner rather than later.
Well, I think, I'm just, I think we're all just going to be happy to come and ride our bikes and race our bikes. And I
Yeah,
have to say, I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
good.
Yeah, really can't wait for this. Right, well, look, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Thank
Hopefully,
you.
everybody watching, you enjoyed this. If you had questions that we didn't answer, or that you don't think we answered in what we talked about, do leave them below. We will be resharing this video to various social media channels, and I'm sure we will get down to we will answer those questions. Because Alex says, which is harder, the North or South Downs? Alex, you can rewatch the whole video and find out. I'll leave that one there for you, because we did answer that one. Right, look, thank you ever so much for watching, everybody. Kevin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Neil.
And I will see you on Thursday.
Yes.
And hopefully, to all of you watching, I will be posting some content Thursday and throughout various parts of the weekend.
Brilliant. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Cheers.
you very much,
Thanks.
everybody.